The moment I knew something was wrong wasn't when she said she was going out. It was the way she tightened the necklace. She was standing in front of the bedroom mirror. The chain was gold, delicate, with a tiny emerald pendant I'd never seen before. It didn't come from me. She clipped it, tilted her head, and smiled at her reflection, like she was meeting someone she hadn't seen in years. Maybe herself. Or maybe him. "You look nice," I said, already regretting it. Without turning, she replied, "Thanks. Don't be jealous." That was it. No lie. No fake story about a girl's night. She didn't even offer a name. She just assumed I'd say nothing. And for a second, I didn't. The audacity wasn't in the words. It was in the calm. She spoke to me like I was furniture. Like her mind had already left this house and followed her body into someone else's car. I asked, "Who is he?" She finally looked at me. "Does it matter?" I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. "You're married," I said. "And I'm tired of pretending that means something to you," she snapped back, as if I had been the one disappearing every Thursday night with a different perfume on. She picked up her purse and keys. I stood frozen. I didn't yell. I didn't block the door. I didn't cry. I just said one thing, one sentence. "Does he know what happened last October?" Her hand stopped mid-air, inches from the doorknob. That's when the mask cracked. Not fully, but just enough. She turned slowly. "You wouldn't." I didn't move. "You said you'd never bring that up again," she whispered. "But you said you'd never do this," I replied. The air between us felt electric. Not the kind that shocks, the kind that kills in silence. She left anyway, and I went straight to the drawer where she keeps her old journals. I wasn't looking for revenge, but what I found between the pages, that was worse than betrayal. It was premeditation. I didn't even know she still kept one. The journal, I mean. It was dusty, hidden in the bottom drawer under old scarves she hadn't worn in years, and a crumpled Christmas card from her sister. I never opened that drawer. I always thought it was where she stashed old makeup or unused coupons. But something about the way she walked out that door made me feel like I'd been walking through someone else's life with my eyes shut. It was leather-bound, teal-colored, and heavier than it looked. I flipped through the first few pages. They were what you'd expect. Yoga routines, quotes from self-help books, little lists about what made her feel centered. But then, about two-thirds in, the ink changed. The handwriting got sharper, tighter. The sentences clipped. Each entry started with a number. At first, I didn't understand it. Day 18, he didn't notice I took the wine bottle. Or that I wore lipstick to bed. Day 23, I almost told him. But he made pasta, and the kids were laughing, and I felt like a monster. Day 29, he doesn't ask why I shower twice some days. He doesn't ask anything. Each entry was a countdown. Not from something, but towards something. And the more I read, the more my stomach turned inside out. She had planned this. Every moment, every excuse, every outfit premeditated. She wasn't just drifting into someone else's arms. She was keeping score of her deception like it was a game, and I was the clueless spectator. She didn't write about Marcus by name yet, but it was clear someone else was involved. Phrases like, "He waited in the parking lot," and "I told him this would be the last time, but I lied again," started appearing. By the time I got to day 41, I was sweating. Literally. My hands were trembling, heart thudding against my ribs like it wanted out. Because that's when I saw the line that split me in two. I think I love him. Not for who he is, but for who he lets me be. Who he lets her be. And what did I let her be? Safe? Cared for? Respected? That was weakness now? I closed the journal and just sat there, staring at the drawer. And then I realized something else. The necklace. The green one. She hadn't just picked it for color. On day 34, she wrote. He said emeralds remind him of me, something rare, something fire-trapped in glass. That necklace wasn't just a gift. It was a brand, a symbol of everything she had become with him, or at least what she believed she had become. I stood up. I didn't know what to do, not really. But I knew I couldn't just sit and rot in that house while she played out her double life. So I did something stupid. I drove. I got into my car, with no plan and no direction, just the name of the cycling club she had mentioned once in passing. I hadn't forgotten it. Midtown Velo, she had said, the day she brought home those new leggings and claimed she was reclaiming her body. I didn't know what I was looking for. Him? Her? A truth I could hold in my hands instead of reading in her slanted handwriting? But what I found in that parking lot, when I pulled up and saw her car, it wasn't her. It was them, and what they were doing. That shattered the last quiet place inside me. There's this strange moment your body goes through when it senses betrayal before your mind fully registers it. Like every nerve in your skin tries to run away from the rest of you. That's how I felt pulling into the back lot of Midtown Velo. My fingers were clenched so tightly around the steering wheel that I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath for nearly a full minute. The air was thick, not just with humidity, but with the weight of what I knew I was about to see. Her car was there, parked crooked, like she'd pulled in fast. The passenger side was empty, but the seat was pushed back, far back. Whoever had been there was tall. Not me tall, taller. I waited, not sure for what. But then I saw movement through the large pane window on the side of the building. It wasn't just her and him chatting, or standing close, or even kissing like I had prepared myself for. It was something colder. She was laughing, not nervously or awkwardly, but fully and without reservation. Her hands were moving like they always did when she told an exciting story. And he was right next to her, standing behind her, arms loosely around her waist, while another woman took their picture. A picture. They posed for it. He kissed her neck while they smiled for the camera. Then the other woman, blonde, early 30s, yoga body, high-fived her and whispered something that made Renee throw her head back and laugh even harder. That wasn't just an affair. That was a celebration. She was being welcomed into a group. A circle. Like this wasn't a secret, but a lifestyle. One I didn't know she had joined. I sat there, stunned. I felt ridiculous, like some half-dressed fool in a bad sitcom. I didn't recognize the person she was in there. Not because she had changed, but because maybe she had always been like this when I wasn't around. And I just never got to see it. I could have walked in, confronted her, asked who the blonde was, asked why she'd written in her journal on day 38. This could be the start of something permanent. But I didn't. I stayed in the car. I watched them walk outside. She leaned into his chest. He looked down at her with the kind of smirk I thought only existed in cheap romance paperbacks. She rested her hand on his stomach. Familiar. Intimate. They stood that way for a while. Then she got into his truck. Not her car. His. She left her car behind. And I watched them drive away, laughing. Together. That night, she didn't come home. She didn't call. Didn't text. No lies, no alibis. Just silence. I sat on the floor of our bedroom, the journal in one hand and my wedding ring in the other. My phone buzzed once, a message from her that said, "Staying with a friend. Don't wait up." A friend. I stared at that word for 20 minutes, wondering when it had stopped meaning what it used to, wondering how many days she had rehearsed that sentence. Then I noticed something in the journal I'd missed before. Tucked inside the last page was a Polaroid photo. Not of him, not of her, of me, taken from behind. I was in the backyard, mowing the lawn, completely unaware. There was a note scribbled under it in pencil. Day 10. He still has no idea. I almost feel guilty. I didn't sleep. Not even a little. Just laid there on the floor until the sky changed colors. But in the morning, something unexpected happened. I got a call. From someone I didn't know. A man's voice. Nervous. Apologetic. He said, "We need to talk. About your wife. It's not what you think." And then he hung up. The call lasted 11 seconds. Long enough for him to drop the bomb. Too short for me to say anything. And the way he ended it, "It's not what you think," was like someone walking past you in a storm and casually tossing a grenade at your feet. I sat there on the edge of the bed, phone still in my hand, blinking at the quiet. My heart was pounding, not from rage this time, but something colder. Anticipation. Dread. Confusion. I stared at the number. No name, no area code I recognized. It wasn't local, not even the state. And when I called back, it rang once, then disconnected. Straight to voicemail. But the mailbox was full. I didn't even know who to be angry at. Not Renee. Not yet. I had already been drained dry of that kind of anger. It was something else now. Like I had stepped into a story that had been unfolding behind my back for months. And every time I turned a corner, someone else was already 10 pages ahead. I spent the next few hours digging. Not into her phone. She'd taken that with her. But into the places people forget they've left footprints. Old emails on our shared desktop. Bookmarks in the browser. Delivery addresses on shopping receipts. And that's when something caught my eye. A purchase. Not hers. Mine. Or at least my credit card. A pair of headphones. Top-end. Noise-canceling. The kind I'd never buy for myself. Ordered 3 weeks ago. Delivered to a P.O. box in Indiana. We don't live in Indiana. And neither do any of her friends. At least none I've ever met. So I did something reckless. I got in the car. Call it desperation or stupidity, but I couldn't sit there another night drowning in my own imagination. It was a 5-hour drive, the kind of trip I'd normally prepare for with snacks and podcasts. But this time, I drove in silence. 5 hours of nothing but the hum of the road and the voice in my head repeating that man's words. It's not what you think. I reached the post office just before they closed. Walked in, told the clerk I was picking up for box 214. I was bluffing, but I had a screenshot of the tracking confirmation with the matching box number. She barely looked at it. "Oh, that guy already picked it up," she said, sliding my phone back to me. Tall, thin, talked like he was from down south. Seemed real polite. I asked her if she knew his name. She shook her head. Didn't say much. But he left this behind. She handed me a receipt. One of those standard thermal paper slips. But on the back, someone had scribbled a name. Simon E. It wasn't familiar. Until it was. Simon Engel. A name from years ago. One I hadn't heard in nearly a decade. He used to work with Renee. Briefly. Back when she was still doing contract design work for boutique hotels. He was married then, I think. Quiet guy. Smart. Looked like someone who read all the manuals before opening a box. And then something clicked. That necklace. The emerald. Back then, Renee had mentioned once, just once, that Simon's favorite color was green. She had said it casually, like you say someone's birthday out loud and forget it 2 minutes later. I hadn't thought about it since. But suddenly, it wasn't just a necklace. It was a thread leading straight to someone I hadn't known existed in our life anymore. That night, back at a grim motel off the highway, I kept scanning through anything I could find. Old emails, archived Facebook messages, deleted contacts in her phone backups. And there he was, Simon Engel, not in her friends list anymore. But I found an email chain from 6 months ago. Subject line, catch up? The emails were brief. Sterile. Professional. But too clean. Too vague. They didn't read like people reuniting after years. They read like people hiding their reunion in plain sight. Then I made the mistake of opening the attachment in one of the emails. It was a PDF of a hotel reservation. 2 guests. 3 nights. Booked under her maiden name. And that date? It was the same weekend she'd told me she was at a wellness retreat. I felt sick. But I wasn't ready for what came next. Because as I stared at the document, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I answered. And this time, the man didn't hang up. He said, "You don't know me. But I used to be married to Renee's friend. I've seen what she's done before. What she's doing now. And you need to know, Simon isn't who he says he is." Then came a pause. And finally, he said the one sentence that changed everything. "Have you checked your bank accounts lately?" That question hit harder than anything I'd read in the journal. Harder than watching her laugh with that man. Harder even than the Polaroid she'd secretly taken of me. "Have you checked your bank accounts lately?" I hadn't. Not really. I mean, I kept an eye on them out of habit, made sure the mortgage auto draft cleared, verified our weekly grocery budget was still intact, made the usual clicks without really reading the numbers. But sitting there in that cheap motel with the buzzing fluorescent light overhead, I realized something horrifying. I hadn't actually studied our accounts in months. The man on the line said, "You don't have time to wait. Check them now. Then you'll believe me." And the line went dead. My hands were trembling as I opened the app. The signal was weak, the bar spinning for a few seconds too long. Then, like a dam breaking, all the numbers popped up. At first, it looked normal. Joint checking, $3,284. Savings, $14,506. But then I tapped the transaction history. The savings account had been drained and refilled several times over the last 4 months. $9,000 out. Then a $9,000 deposit 2 days later. Then another withdrawal for $11,500, followed by 2 deposits from EXT Funds/P.O. Box 214, totaling the same amount. It wasn't theft. It was circulation. Our money was being shuffled, laundered through something. And the worst part? I didn't recognize any of the deposits. Not a single one. They weren't transfers from my job, and they weren't from hers either, because Renee hadn't worked a traditional job in over a year. And that's when my throat dried up. She wasn't working. Not really. She was managing something. I checked deeper, pulled the bank statements as PDFs, opened them on my laptop. There were merchant codes I didn't understand. ECCM GMT, BLSN4, INTL, Axiom P. Some were from out of state, others from places she'd never even mentioned. Belize, Prague. One transaction, for $4,200, was marked as client hold, released by proxy. This wasn't cheating anymore. This was something else. Something structured. I tried to breathe. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking. But then I remembered the necklace, the journal, the camera, the cycling club that wasn't really a cycling club, the friend who took pictures. And now Simon, the man who was never supposed to be in our lives again. What if this wasn't about love? Or romance? Or lust? What if it was about leverage? I picked up my phone again, called the bank's fraud department. I didn't accuse her. Not yet. I just asked a few questions. The kind that seem harmless on the surface. Have any access permissions been changed recently? Yes, sir, the rep said. 2 months ago. Joint access was separated. Your name was removed from several linked accounts. My heart skipped. I never approved that. She paused. The request was digitally signed. From your home IP. We have the timestamp. Timestamp, April 9th, 3:12 p.m. I wasn't home. I was speaking at a community board meeting. I had the email invite to prove it. My wife forged the request. She digitally signed my name and separated our finances without saying a word, without even blinking, all while smiling across the dinner table, asking how my baked ziti turned out. I didn't know what to feel. Shame? Disgust? I wasn't even angry yet. I was numb, like someone had shut off the blood supply to my sense of reality. Then I did one last thing. I opened our safe. Not the one in the closet, the real one. The one behind the painting in the study, the one Renee didn't even like touching because it smelled like metal and old paper. I hadn't opened it in over a year. Inside were the usual things: birth certificates, old tax returns, a flash drive labeled 2009. But taped underneath the floor of the compartment, hidden with surgical precision, was a small white envelope. It had my name on it, written in her handwriting. Inside was a single folded note and 2 airline tickets. First class. One way. Amsterdam. Dated for next week. And the note? It read, "You always said I was good at puzzles. Let's see how fast you figure this one out." My knees gave out. I collapsed onto the floor, the note still in my hand, and stared at the ceiling until my eyes stung. Because at that moment, I realized something terrible. She wasn't just leaving. She was running. And whatever she was running with, she thought I couldn't catch her. But she was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. I lay on the floor of my study with the envelope still in my hand and the flight tickets spread out like evidence in a crime scene. I kept rereading her message. "You always said I was good at puzzles. Let's see how fast you figure this one out." It wasn't a taunt. It wasn't even cruel. It was smug. Like she had already calculated my confusion into the equation and expected me to unravel at just the right speed. Too slow to stop her, just fast enough to know I'd been played. By 4:30 a.m., I had the printer on, the laptop open, 2 browsers running side by side, and my phone burning up in my palm. I started digging deeper into the accounts she separated, cross-referencing the email addresses tied to the changes. One of them had never been ours. I plugged it into every dark corner of the internet I could think of. Obscure forums, business registry tools, a blockchain lookup site. And that's when I hit something. There was a name. Not Renee's. Not Simon's either. It was a man named Tobin Kleist. He had a shell company registered in Delaware. Elandra Vantage. Supposedly a consultancy firm, but the website was blank. No staff, no mission statement, just a logo and a dead contact form. But the metadata for that site linked back to a shared hosting server used by 2 other pages, both of which had been shut down a month ago. One of them had previously been flagged in a financial crimes investigation out of Sweden. I suddenly understood what I was looking at. This wasn't about her having a midlife affair. This was about fraud, identity manipulation, money laundering. I was looking at something I wasn't meant to see. And that's when my screen froze. The laptop buzzed, blinked twice, and shut down. Entirely. I tried powering it back on. Nothing. Then my phone went black. Completely. No warning. No low battery. No reboot. I felt cold sweep through my body, like someone had just turned off the sun. I backed away from the desk slowly, every instinct screaming that this wasn't random, that someone knew I had seen something. Maybe they were watching the same sites I'd been snooping through. Maybe that was her plan all along, give me just enough rope to hang myself with curiosity. But here's the thing she didn't count on. I had backups. Years ago, out of pure librarian paranoia, I installed a local data drive that wasn't connected to any cloud network, just old-school storage. And I copied everything: bank statements, emails, the journal scans, the PDF reservation, even a photo I took of the emerald necklace left on her nightstand the week before. And on that drive, I found something I hadn't noticed earlier. A recording. Not mine. Not hers. A short voicemail. 1 minute and 26 seconds long. From a blocked number, left in a hidden folder on the system. The voice was male, calm, and deliberate. I recognized it instantly. It was the same man who had called me from the motel. He said, "If you're hearing this, it means she's already gone. She never told you who Tobin was, but you need to understand, she didn't do this alone. She was a pawn once, just like you. But somewhere along the line, she volunteered for the game." He paused. "She was supposed to pull out 3 months ago, but she got greedy. She wanted to finish it. With Simon, they used your accounts to shift the back-end money, through local banks, through international crypto holdings, and finally into something called Harnett Trust. Check that name. You'll find it buried inside the Alandra paperwork." There was static. Then, "Whatever you do, don't go to Amsterdam alone." Click. That was it. That was all I had. I started typing frantically. Harnett Trust. Found nothing. Then I thought of something insane, something that didn't make sense unless it did. I opened up the PDF of the flight confirmation again. Scanned it. Then zoomed in on the fine print. The ticket wasn't booked for her. It was for me. One way. Under my full legal name, with my passport number. She booked me a flight I never asked for. I stared at the screen, feeling like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. This wasn't a getaway for her. This was a framed job. A transfer of guilt. Of digital evidence. Of traceable movement. She had arranged everything. So if someone started sniffing around, if any law enforcement came asking, I'd be the one who looked like he ran. The emails. The fake deposits. The bank permissions. The forged signatures. I was being made into the fall guy for something that went far beyond adultery. And the worst part? She was probably already watching. Or worse, waiting. I didn't leave the study for over 6 hours. I couldn't. I sat there surrounded by fragments of the life I thought I was living. Wedding photos, old receipts, those ridiculous novelty mugs she insisted on buying, and the hard drive now glowing faintly on my desk like it knew something I didn't. The revelation that the plane ticket to Amsterdam was for me and not her changed the narrative completely. It shifted the entire story. Suddenly, she wasn't just escaping. She was offloading the crime. Disappearing just far enough behind the curtain to watch the house collapse with me still trapped inside. The question now wasn't how I'd been betrayed. It was why. Around 11 a.m., I drove to the one place I hoped I wouldn't have to involve my brother Evan. He's not a lawyer or an investigator. He runs a security tech company out of a sterile little office park on the edge of the city. But he's paranoid in the way that's useful in times like these. He's the guy who puts black tape over his laptop camera, who keeps a prepaid phone in his glove box, who once gave me a fireproof safe for my birthday just in case things ever go sideways. I didn't explain everything right away. I just handed him the flash drive and asked, "Can you tell me if anything on this would put me in prison?" He raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. 2 hours later, he came back into the room pale and rubbing his jaw like it was sore from being clenched. "There are at least 4 files on here that would get flagged by federal cybercrime investigators," he said. 3 of them are buried inside decoy folders, looks like accounting files, but they're hiding encrypted transfers routed through Canadian proxy banks. The 4th one. Clay, it's a spreadsheet of offshore accounts. In your name. I didn't even speak. I just stared at the folder names on the screen. She used her credentials, Evan continued. Digital fingerprints. Browser cookies. Home IP. She masked her moves behind your shadow. It's clean, too. If this went to the feds tomorrow, the narrative would be airtight. Husband steals funds, launders through crypto wallets, books one-way flight out of the country. Wife gets left behind as a shocked, grieving partner. This is straight out of a white-collar crime playbook. I sat back in the chair, my head spinning. What would you do if you were me? Evan didn't answer right away. He pulled out one of his burner phones from a drawer, slid it across the table. First thing, ditch yours. That thing's not safe anymore. Second, if there's someone who knows more than you do, someone who called you, find them. Fast. I took the phone and walked out without another word. Back at my place, I realized how little of the space felt like mine anymore. The fridge still had that post-it note from Renee. Buy more oat milk. The towel in the bathroom still had her makeup stain on the corner. But it all felt like props now. Set designed for a life that never really existed. She hadn't just lied to me. She designed a whole environment of calm just to keep me sedated while she rewired our reality. So I started calling. Using the new phone, I tried the original number that had called me from the motel. Still blocked. But I left a voicemail this time, something short. I know about Harnett Trust. I know about Amsterdam. If you want me to stay alive, call back. 3 hours later, I got a response, in the form of a text. Meet me. Tonight. 9 p.m. Riverbend Underpass. Come alone. Leave your devices. Don't be late. That was it. No name. No follow-up. It sounded insane. And maybe it was. But when you're standing at the edge of a cliff someone else led you to, the only decision left is whether you jump blind or learn how to fly on the way down. I didn't tell Evan. I didn't take anything with me except a flashlight and a folder of printed documents. Enough to prove I wasn't crazy, even if no one believed me. Riverbend was quiet. The kind of forgotten place where teenagers drink in parked cars and stray cats outnumber humans. The underpass was empty. Just crickets, wind, and the slow rush of water beneath. At 9:02, a car pulled up. Lights off. Black SUV, windows tinted, engine idling like it didn't care if it got noticed. Then the driver's side opened. A man stepped out. Lean. Mid-40s. Faint limp. Gray coat. He didn't introduce himself. He just said, Renee wasn't supposed to involve you. That was never part of the agreement. My pulse skipped. What agreement? He stepped closer. The one she made 3 years ago. With us. I didn't speak. My mouth wouldn't open. She didn't tell you about Seattle, did she? He asked. About the fake design contracts? About the whistleblower settlement she walked away from? No, she didn't. She took a payout to disappear, he continued. Start fresh. Wipe the record clean. But she didn't want to start over. She wanted to build something. And that required collateral. You were the most convenient one. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're saying this goes back years? He looked me straight in the eye. Clayton, your wife's entire career was a cover. I felt the folder in my hand go limp. She never fell into something. She orchestrated it. The man handed me a USB. This is everything. But once you open it, there's no going back. And if you do, you'll have 48 hours before someone else realizes you've seen it. Then he walked away. Didn't look back. Just left me there, under the bridge, in the dark. And I hadn't even asked the most terrifying question yet. If I wasn't the only one she used, then who else had already paid for her escape? I didn't sleep the night after the meeting under the bridge. I didn't even sit. I just stood in the kitchen, watching the clock on the microwave blink from 3:58 to 3:59 like it was counting down to something I couldn't name. The flash drive the stranger gave me sat on the table, untouched. I hadn't plugged it in yet. Not because I was afraid of what was on it, but because deep down, I already knew. Everything about Renee had been planned, calculated. Her warmth, her spontaneity, her sudden fascination with reclaiming freedom. All of it had been a story told to keep me asleep while she dug the trap deeper. At 7 a.m. sharp, I drove straight to Evan's office. He took one look at my face and silently powered up his private rig, air-gapped from any networks, running off-grid. I handed him the drive. Open it. And whatever you find, back it up 6 different ways. Within an hour, it was all there. Files, transfers, account links, offshore routing logs, passcodes, passport scans, one folder labeled Exit Package. Inside were scanned forms with my name forged across the bottom. Legal authorization papers, documentation that could paint me as the mastermind behind every dime that had been shifted in and out of our accounts. But Evan found something else. A second folder. Hidden. Password protected. It took him 20 minutes to crack it. Inside were voice memos. Renee's. Not to me. To Simon. To someone named Tobin. One to her mother. Another that chilled me to the bone. One to herself. In it, she explained the whole thing. Her frustrations. Her regrets. Her thrill. Her fear. She even confessed that she knew I wasn't dumb enough to believe the cycling lie, that I'd eventually find the journal, the tickets, the calls. But the final message was different. It was dated 4 days ago. She sounded distant, not confident anymore. Her voice cracked in the first 15 seconds. If Clayton finds this, maybe he'll understand. I didn't want to hurt you, Clay. Not at first. But once I started lying, I didn't know how to stop. And then I needed you to be guilty, because if you were innocent, That meant I was a monster. I'm sorry. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat still. Because something shifted. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was rescue. I wasn't just saving myself. I was pulling the plug on a machine she couldn't control anymore. That afternoon, I walked into a federal field office in Detroit with the drive in my jacket, the documents in a sealed envelope, and the printouts in triplicate. I told the agent behind the counter, "This isn't about me running. This is about me stopping something before it gets worse." They listened. And because of the proof I handed over, Renee's memos, Evan's logs, even the Amsterdam confirmation in her handwriting, the Fed saw what I had come to understand. I was never her accomplice. I was her cover. Within 48 hours, they issued a warrant. Not for me. For her. Interpol flagged the Amsterdam booking. She was detained at the airport with a fake passport in her purse and over $120,000 in crypto keys on her phone. Simon never showed up. Tobin didn't exist. The emerald necklace? Traced back to a victim of identity theft in Ontario. Her story crumbled the second she stepped into customs. And me? I walked out of that office with nothing more than my name. Clean. Whole. Free. In the weeks that followed, I didn't make any dramatic speeches. I didn't post anything online. I didn't burn her stuff or leave bitter voicemails. I just quietly started over. I got a small place near the lake. Bought a better mattress. Started going on morning walks with a real camera, not to document lies, but to remember what it feels like to see things again. And you know what? I don't hate her. I pity her. Because I learned something she never did. You can build a life without control. You can heal without pretending to be perfect. You can be broken quietly and still be whole again. And for the first time in over a decade, I don't feel like a passenger in my own story. I feel like a man who finally walked out of the fire with his name intact.